What is up, YouTube? Colin here, the Wild CEO. Today's video is about why you're not losing weight on a keto diet, because maybe, I assume, you're not utilizing intermittent fasting. Let's get to it. Real quick, very simple. Let's gonna talk about keto diet real quick. Maybe not. I mean, you're here because you probably know what a keto diet is. Well, it's basically very, very low carb. It's high fat, moderate, medium protein. You know, some people do lower protein. I think moderate protein is much better. But again, topic for another day. And that is meant to keep your insulin and glucose levels as low as possible so that your body can produce ketone bodies through utilizing adipocytes, which is fat tissue, and converting that into ketone bodies, which then goes into your blood and your brain, and your body uses it up for fuel instead of glucose. That's keto in a nutshell. And it's very effective at getting people weight loss results, because when people are eating glucose all the time and constantly keeping their blood sugar levels high, insulin high, the body defaults to having to burn that off, and then it displaces fat oxidation, which is fat burning, and fat basically goes to the back burner. And what's even worse is when people are eating a lot of carbs and a lot of fat. Carbs come in, raise glucose levels, stimulate more insulin, that fat's hanging out right there. It literally can't be burned off because you have all this glucose floating around in your system. Glucose that's elevated is considered poison. Your body has to basically move it out into glucagon stores or into fat stores. So when you eat all these carbs, your body goes to work trying to figure out what to do with those. And then you got fat here that's just like, I don't know what to do, so I'm basically gonna go directly to fat stores. It's a big problem, right? It's why keto gives people so many results. But people will very quickly plateau, especially if they're the type to be a grazer. If they're eating on a regular basis, like every couple hours, or maybe they just snack and do things like that, that is severely halting any human's fat loss efforts for the same reason I just talked about, the glucose. Every time you eat, your body responds by increasing blood sugar and then insulin in response to that food that goes into your system, especially carbs. Protein to a lesser extent. Fat doesn't really spike insulin or glucose the same way. And there's a lot of things with the fat metabolism and eating fat, and there's a lot of complexity there. But the way most people do it is they're snacking on a consistent, steady state, all day long, every couple hours, dose of carbs. And as a result, their glucose is raised, their insulin is raised, and their body, like I said, defaults to only being able to burn glucose, and then all that insulin that comes up increases insulin resistance, which makes it harder, even harder for you to burn fat, because you release even more resistance because you got to do some of that glucose. It's just a big, really bad domino effect, like cycle, and people, I don't think, even realize they're doing it. They might think, oh, I'm having some nuts and seeds, or oh, I'm having, a few chips here and there, or whatever. But the reality is, you eat a meal, like I just ate an amazing grass-fed prime ribeye. It was delicious. Basically no carbs too. And I would say you eat food and you have, like I said, all those hormonal responses. Your body's got to do something with that energy that's in here. It's going to digest it and then move it places. It's going to respond to the glucose leveling, raising. It's going to respond to the insulin release, and it's going to do things, right? If you look at fasting glucose level, like there's meters and things you can do, it's like usually 2 hours after a meal where your levels will come down, your blood sugar will come down, and it will kind of stabilize. And then it might even be a little bit longer after that to where your body can get into ketosis. And of course, this varies depending on the person. If you're in ketosis very often and you're already eating a low-carb diet, you get into ketosis much faster, and that's a topic for another day. Even if you're doing keto and you're in ketosis sometimes, or you're at least following the carb guidelines, you might not be getting into ketosis as much as you think because of what I'm talking about right now, because you're eating, and then you don't give your body enough time to move into a fat burning state, let your blood sugar come down, let ketones body be created through the ketosis process, and then let your body get good at utilizing fat as energy. Because what you're gonna do is you're gonna give 2 hours and then maybe you snack or you have something. What do you think's gonna happen again? The whole process starts over. The whole process reinitiates all these hormones, increases insulin and glucose, and then says, hey, fat, I'll maybe talk to you later. Maybe we can hang out later and I could use some of you for energy. Maybe I could throw some of you into the fire. Every time you eat, the glucose and insulin comes up and goes, see you later, fat. Maybe later. Maybe later I'll burn some of you. When you snack, that's what you're doing. Now, obviously, you've probably heard the whole eat 6 meals a day, stoke your metabolism. Well, let me tell you, it's a creation of the food and supplement companies and really, really, really poorly trained or understood trainers, and a lot in the fitness community used to say that kind of stuff. It's garbage. It's complete and utter nonsense. Your body is a biomechanical freaking beautiful machine is what it is. And when you eat food, it goes through a whole complex set of process to process that food. Your body responds. It has to repair things. It has to fuel itself. It's like this just hugely complex thing. And when you eat food, you're turning that thing on. And like I said, getting the glucose and the insulin and saying, I'll see you later, fat. That's the basic way to think about every time you consume calories. There are some exceptions here. Like if you eat pure fat, it doesn't really respond the same way. Protein will, your body will metabolize the protein and respond and release a little bit of insulin. Carbs definitely will. So the primary way your body responds is by raising glucose and insulin. But even if you are on a keto diet and you're keeping your carbs very low, you're going a little bit of time in between meals or snacks or whatever, you're never giving your body a chance to really get into a deep ketosis and to stay in that for a period of time. And when I say ketosis, you can interchange that with fat burning, right? That's just a simple way to think about it. And I think it actually confuses and scares people and maybe even the negative connotation for people. Fat burning. You want to burn fat, you have to let your hormones come down and you have to give yourself time. And that's where intermittent fasting comes in. I'll just give you my today as an example. I had my first meal at 2 p.m. I just finished with that meal. Based on me having done this for a long time, I'm gonna probably eat my next meal in about 5 hours and then I'm done. And my next meal will probably be smaller. So I just had a big steak. I'll probably have a little bit of protein, maybe some fat. And if I wanna throw in some carbs, I'll do a little bit of carbs. I'm pretty low carb right now, almost nearly carnivore in my current eating, but I do throw stuff in here and there. I'm not too dogmatic about it. After that meal, right, let's say it's 7 p.m., first meal's 2, second meal 7, and a lot of times my window will change actually. I'll do my first meal at like 5, and my last meal will be at like 9, and then I don't eat again to the next day until about 5 p.m. This is known as intermittent fasting. All you're doing is taking your feeding window. So the time of the day that I'm eating, this little area right here, this is the only time I'm gonna eat my calories. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move to this fasting period, which overlaps to the next day. And this area is where I get all my fat burning because I let my insulin and my hormones come down. I let my body not have food from my mouth. It has to go to energy on my body. And then that's how it survives and rests and recovers and repairs and keeps me alive. I mean, every night you sleep for 8 hours, you're fasting. Your body is using resources there. The problem is if you have a very carb-based metabolism right now, a carb-based way of eating, your body is not as good at getting into ketosis, and it's not as good at burning fat. You have to keep your carbs down. But again, you're probably here because you're interested in keto. You're maybe already doing keto, and you want to figure out why keto is not letting you lose weight or why you've plateaued. Promise you, intermittent fasting is the next step on your journey. If you aren't plateauing, you should do intermittent fasting anyways because longevity, autophagy, recycling old cells, killing cancer cells, eating up cancer cells, all these reasons and all the research that shows just how beneficial fasting is, you want to be fasting. I talk about fasting, intermittent fasting particularly, as a first principle for humans because our ancestors would not have eaten on a consistent schedule. They had to get food from nature. Sometimes they weren't successful in the hunt. Maybe it was winter and food was very hard to come by. And they would come across food, they would eat a bunch, and they would go periods of time without food. It's the natural ebb and flow of human metabolism based on our human past living in the wild for hundreds of thousands of years. When you really understand ancestral health and like and subscribe, because that's how you're going to truly understand it. I mean, more videos coming out, and you can check out the podcast on iTunes, Google, Spotify. When you understand ancestral health, you understand the first principles of biology. You can see through so much of the garbage and the dogma and the misinformation that is available in our modern nutrition, USDA, FDA, Heart Association, government, food pyramid, freaking nonsense is what most of it is. In fact, did you know that the American Heart Association lists its primary donors as like the top processed food companies? There's a lot of conspiracies here, folks. There's a lot of money to be made by keeping you thinking that fat is bad, that you should eat a bunch of meals, that you should snack, that you should buy these fake foods, these hydrogenated, partially hydrogenated fatty acids and seed oils and crop oils. It is a disaster. Sugar, refined flour, and seed and crop oils are the killers of today, right? Even more so than smoking. Remember, smoking was a big health epidemic that everyone's so concerned about? Well, sneaking right up on the heels of that was all this processed food and all these crop foods, all these mass-produced big agribusiness subsidized foods. And now smoking is almost kind of a fringe thing. I would actually be curious how many people smoke. Maybe 10% of the population, maybe 15%. and they know what they're doing, but you have this health crisis that is at the hands of our food system, and it's really bad. And I hope I can help educate you, open your mind. Maybe you can save your children, your family, your friends, your coworkers. Lead by example. Eat real food. That's your medicine. If you're eating real food and you're living in accordance with your genes, living as close to nature as possible, as we recommend in the Ancestral Mind, you will not need of modern medicine, and you pretty much don't even need to go to a doctor. Although you can go to a doctor, get your checkups, do all that stuff. Stay on top of it. And again, any recommendations you make based on this video are at your own volition, and I assume no liability. And this is just entertainment. And even if I'm speaking things that are true or might be true, you still have to bring it up to your doctor and talk to him or her about it, and then whatever, right? So this isn't medical advice. It's not intended to diagnose or treat any disease. I almost know how to say that disclaimer word for word, just because I've heard it and read it and written it on labels so many times with raw foods. I didn't even realize that. I can actually say it. That's gonna be it though. Use intermittent fasting, compress your feeding window. I mean, you can even, some people are getting great success with one meal a day, one big meal a day. Keep your carbs low. If you're doing keto, great, keep doing it. I would recommend for all those keto people out there to avoid dairy. I see a lot of dairy consumption on keto, and I think that's a big, probably hurting people more than it's helping. And that's gonna be it. That's all she wrote today. So like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.